Here we are with our cube draft, and this pack has, as usual, quite a lot of powerful cards. We can see Fact or Fiction, one of the most powerful draw spells ever printed. And then there's also quite a lot of combo potential. We have both Sneak Attack and Palinchron in the same pack. I think that's an infinite mana combo if you have enough lands out. There's a Misty Rainforest as a non-basic land, Sword of Light and Shadow, so we really have to decide which card is going to be good in most decks, and Fact or Fiction is definitely one of them. I don't like Sword of Light and Shadow that much because of its effect. I don't think it's that powerful. And Fact or Fiction should be good in any blue deck, so I'm going to pick that up. Now, this is a Gideon Jura, and it's actually the most first picked white card in Cube, I think, from one of the MTGO emails you can sign up for. And there's a lot of reasons for that, because it's basically good in any deck that can support its casting costs, and because it can be very good in a control deck, it can also be very good in an aggressive deck. And as there isn't really a blue card here for us, I think Gideon should be the pick. There is a Glacial Fortress here which could help us fix our colors, but we aren't set into anything yet. Also passing Chrome Mox and Windswept Heath as the mana producing cards, and all the other cards are much worse than the ones in the first pack. There's a Rude Awakening as a late game card, also a Corlash for a potential mono black deck, but Gideon is a very good signal and a great card, which means that we could go for a blue-white control deck, potentially. Gifts Ungiven would give us another Fact or Fiction-like card, which is good, but not something we are currently looking for. If we are really looking to be blue-white, we need ways to control the board, and Gideon already does a good job of that, but we also need a good mix of threats and permission, and too many card draw spells are just going to dilute our deck. Here I think Stoneforge Mystic could be a very good start into a Call Blade style of deck with powerful early and late game. And it's early enough that we could easily pick up some powerful equipments. I think the alternatives in this pack is actually Lotus Cobra, with the chance to just accelerate into our powerful stuff. Now, here we basically have a lot of support cards. The Dryad is good in non-green decks, in fact, splashed with some of the mana fixing. Spikeshot Elder is okay in mono red. The lands are not that exciting. We don't need Sacred Foundry currently, and Tolaria Rest, we don't know if it's going to do anything. So I think the most powerful card for our strategy is probably Wall of Reverence, because it's such a good card against aggressive strategies. It's also white, which we have gotten the signals for, and I'm quite happy to pick it up. Now the white and blue cards keep coming, but there's also a lot of powerful stuff in the other colors. Wastelands being one of the strongest cards behind Strip Mine, if you want to aggressively destroy opponents' lands. Hymn to Tarek, Condemn. 8.5 Tails is more of an aggressive card, not something I like very much. Venser also not that exciting, because you really need some permanence you want to exile first. So we could go with the Collar to pair with the Mystic, but I don't think the Collar is strong enough in this kind of deck. Wasteland and Academy Ruins would be the land alternatives. I think I'm going to pick up the Wasteland. I don't like the spells that much, and every non-basic land I pick is going to be another card that makes it into my deck. If I overload on spells, then I won't be able to play all of them. Genesis Wave is very strong in any kind of ramp deck that makes use of the fast mana that's available in the format, but our deck isn't looking to shape up that way. It's possible that we could end up in green, then it would be a strong card. We could also pick up Honor of the Pure, but I don't know. I'm not really looking to draft a control-ish white deck with Honor of the Pure. So I'm going to pick up Genesis Wave. I think it's the card with the most potential in this pack. Life from the Loam I don't like very much, and same goes for Crucible. I think the decks that Crucible is good in are really just not good on their own. So it might seem weird because it's certainly a powerful interaction to have something like Crucible Wasteland or Crucible Strip Mine, but it's just not something I'm very fond of. But that doesn't mean that we can't pick it up here, because Decree of Justice is just so expensive, and a Shadow Guy is not going to help us stabilize. Waterfront Bounce are also not a card I'm interested in, so going to pick up the Crucible, and it's possible that we can pick up another card or two to utilize it, and then it should be quite good. Here we have Call to the Skybreaker as a late game card, but it's not difficult to find late game cards, so I'm not really worried about that. Lightning Greaves would give us another equipment to work with Stoneforge Mystic, but it's also not on the power level that I expect from cards in my deck in this cube format. I think the best cards for us are either the Cloudskate or the Mortar Pod, and Mortar Pod has the advantage of being searchable with the Mystic, and we are going to need some cards that have this property anyway, so I really want to be able to have this card live, and also the added bonus of handling aggressive strategies quite effectively. Now here the combo cards are still in the pack, which is to be expected. People are really hesitant to draft combo decks. They prefer to go for either the most aggressive single color strategies or some kind of mid-range decks. So I think for us it's between Opportunity and Palinchron, and Opportunity seems like the more powerful card. We still don't know if we are going to end up in blue, but there wasn't much in the pack anyway. I kind of like Apocrycide. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. It was good in the block format where it could be played, and I'm not going to go into black from the cards I've picked so far. The Elder is another alternative, but I don't want to stretch my mana base currently. Now Wake Thrasher and Curse Catcher are still in the pack. The Wake Thrasher is a good card, but it's too aggressive for the kind of deck I'm drafting. And I think Tidehollow Sculler is so much better than Curse Catcher that I should just pick the Sculler. I'm afraid that the Curse Catcher won't have enough impact. So certainly nobody is drafting mono black. We've seen a late Collage and late Messenger now. Dryad is okay, but not great. I'm going to pick up Tolaria West. Should be a good addition. And same goes for Academy Ruins, making us giving us a lot of potential with our non-basic lands. The Coffers is going to be good in mono black, but we might have a use for Honor of the Pure, so who knows. Currently we don't really have much of a control shell because we didn't get any permission cards to really stop opposing threats, but we can prioritize these later on. There is a Path to Exile to deal with any permanents our opponents are going to play, and also a Route as a master removal, but with Sword of Fire and Ice in the pack and the Stoneforge Mystic to get it, I think I don't have a choice but to take the equipment in this spot. Maybe I'm going to be able to table one of the white spells, but not necessarily. Now we have two equipments, and that makes Stoneforge Mystic playable, and if we get another good one, it's going to be great. Of course, Battle Skull or Jitter would be insane, clearly. Now, here we have some nice cards again. Most of them are not in our colors. Primeval Titan, Coth of the Hammer, not an option. Powder Keg is okay. Preordain basically competes with some lands again, Mutavault and Sheldock Isle. And we could also pick up Prismatic Lens as mana fixing and mana acceleration, but when in doubt, I'm always going to pick up lands before spells, simply because I get more mileage the more non-basic lands I pick. In this deck, equipping Mutavault would be interesting, but Shelldock Isle is basically a free spell and we don't have to pay the mana for it. And it's really not that difficult to activate it in Cube, for example, after having cast Fact or Fiction or something like that. It's also better on the mana because Mutavault is only colorless. I think Shelldock Isle is one of the most powerful cards in the Cube, in fact, and that might seem weird because it doesn't look very powerful, and it's also not something that has been known for its constructed applications, but you have to remember that decks are only 40 cards. So I think it's a very powerful card in any white-blue deck, or basically in any blue deck. Here we have Control Magic, very good way to deal with problem cards. We also have a Mortar Pod to get rid of creatures again. I think the alternatives are Engineered Explosives and Mother of Runes, because the lands aren't that exciting for us. So it's possible that we could table Control Magic, and we are committing to blue quite heavily, so it might just be better to pick Mother of Runes. It's a very good blocker and also easier on the mana. I think I like that a little bit more. Now, Polluted Delta rises in value once you have some kind of dual land, and it's not unlikely that we can still pick one up, but there is still quite a lot of cards that are quite interesting here. We have Land Tax, which could allow us to just get 3 lands out of our deck if we fall behind, but we also have Crucible, and I don't know if this deck really wants to fall behind on lands. I think currently we just really want to play all of our lands, and this makes me think that it should be either Seagate Oracle to carry one of our equipments, or actually the Drogskull Reaver as a great late game card in a blue-white deck. But it's still possible that Polluted Delta is the better card, and that we can simply table the Reaver. I think going with the non-basic land here, hoping to table one of the spells, which should work out. Now this is interesting because of Mindslaver. We do have Academy Ruin, so we have the potential lock, but of course it's still a very expensive lock, and we have no ways to generate additional mana, so we are not going to reach 13 mana without effort. Thawing Glaciers helps to get basic lands, but it's really one of the slowest cards in the format, I think, so not really interested in that. Time Warp can be quite good if you are connecting with swords or have Gideon out, so I think this might actually be the card that I'm most interested in. Yeah, I think I'm going with the Time Warp. And Thawing Glaciers is basically the alternative. Let's go for the land. It's always better to pick the lands. We are going to have enough spells anyway. Next up, Birthing Pod doesn't do anything. We don't have enough creatures. Weathered Wayfarer, one more card to really pick up lands, but not something we're interested in. I think Repeal would offer a nice way to handle permanence, at least temporarily. But Memory Jar is also one of the more powerful cards in Cube, simply giving you 7 cards and the opponent can't really do much. The question is if we currently have the luxury to simply play so many cards that don't do anything. And I think it's more important for us to have the Repeal to get into the later stages of the game, while still playing a perfectly reasonable card. Now, Old Man of the Sea is quite okay as a mind control effect, but Memory Lapse is one of the more powerful counter spells in this format, so I think this is what our deck needs to be competitive in the early game. Here we have an interesting choice between Tinker and Ether Adept. where the adept could lead to nice tempo swings, but our deck doesn't look too good on that front anyway. So I think Tinker has the most potential if we pick up a target for it, and the alternative next to either adept would be Acroma, but I don't see us casting Acroma very soon. So I think picking up the Tinker just for the potential it has could be quite nice. Now, Route tabled, it's better than Lodestone Golem, and we should be able to build a deck that can make use of the master removal effect. And a lot of cards tabled, which isn't unusual. There is just so much power in this cube that good cards are going to come around. I believe that Preordain is probably what this deck wants more than any of the other cards. Powder Keg would be an alternative. Mutavault is not something we need. So yeah, I'm going to pick up Preordain to smooth our draws and get us what we need. That's a late Mishra's Factory, but just like Mutavault, it's not really that interesting for us to have the man lands, so I'm going to pick up the explosives for the matchups where I need them. And the Reaver tabled, we didn't prioritize late game cards thus far, and the Reaver is actually, if not handled, it's actually pretty great. It's not an artifact, so our Tinker doesn't have a target yet, but it's still a very powerful card. And let's pick up the Mindsliver. We do have the Tinker, and who knows if we might make use of it. Now I'm going to hide the Genesis Wave because at this point it's highly unlikely that we are going to play it. We still need some kind of dual land to activate our Polluted Delta. We do have 27 cards, so it's 7 lands and 20 spells, but of course we are not playing all of these spells. So if we keep on picking cards like we did, I think we'll be fine in assembling our deck. We can splash the Scholar of Polluted Delta in a swamp. We also have Thawing Glaciers to find a swamp if we decide to play it. So I think we won't have any trouble with playables. And here we go. Opposition, one of my favorite cards ever, but only in a very dedicated strategy. So you really need to have a lot of mana elves, basically, or some other small cards to go with it. For us, there isn't that much here. Volcanic Island is the wrong dual land. Ponder is another card that doesn't do anything on its own. Palladium Mirror would help us accelerate into our late game, which is it's not a monolith, but it's an alternative. And I don't think we have enough cards to put into the Scepter. So it's between Dismember, Palladium Mirror, and Cloud Goat Ranger, I think, where the more expensive card is just not going to cut it because it's more important to have the early game stuff. With so many artifacts in my deck and also quite powerful 4, 5, 6, and 7 drops, I think that Palladium Mirror adds the most to our deck, and also an effect that's not so easy to come by. There isn't that many cards that add 2 to your mana pool, and of course there's a good reason for that. Now I first saw the Flooded Strand, which would be a great addition to fix our mana and would also make the Crucible playable, but there is an Umezawa's Jitte in this pack, and we do have the Stoneforge Mystic, so there's really no choice in this. We do have to pick it. This is the whole point of drafting Stoneforge Mystic high, and I have to say it's lucky to get a second pick Jitte, because it could very easily be the most powerful card in the pack our neighbor opened. We do have some nice interactions with the Reaver already. The potential to gain life with Wall of Reverence or the Jitte immediately when it comes down. Next up there is the Disc for another mass removal effect that sadly destroys all artifacts but at least leaves the Planeswalker intact. Also a Fathom Seer to draw some cards, but this sets you back quite a lot on the tempo Badlands is the wrong dual line for us. So Fathom Seer, Vesuvian Shapeshifter, and the Disc are the on-color options, and I don't think that we want to support a third color to splash something like Chandra, simply because our non-basic lands don't really support splashing. I think that the Shapeshifter is quite powerful, but our deck doesn't have the right cards to use it with, so I'm going to pick up the Disc as another mass removal effect, which could be quite good considering how we want games to shape up. Meloku, one of the more powerful game enders in Magic's history, I believe. But I'm looking at Counterspell because we are currently very light on ways to really stop our opponent from doing what he wants to do. And I feel that's more important than having another 5-drop. It's also much more likely that we get another 5-drop or expensive drop to dominate the board later on than to have another 2-mana shot at a 2-mana Counterspell, simply because I think Counterspell and Memory Lapse might actually be the only ones in the queue, but I'm not sure about that. Here we have Tectonic Edge, which once again could combo with Crucible, but we don't really have a Crucible deck anyway, so we are probably going to cut that interaction. And this leaves us with the option of maybe picking Court Hussar, which is a nice card. It's similar to Seagate Oracle, and we are playing blue-white. We could try to wheel this card, but given that we are not really interested in the alternatives, I'm just going to pick it up now. There is an Isolated Chapel, which sadly cannot be searched out with Polluted Delta, so here it's really not an option. Gideon's Lawkeeper could of course be used to handle some kind of creature, but it's not really the kind of card we would want to play in our deck. I think the Lich is quite powerful, and so is Tanglewire, but only in aggressive decks. So for us, it should be between Forbidden Alchemy and Fire Ice. Maybe playing Sulfur Falls for the ice part, for the fire part. Sorry, Forbidden Alchemy is okay, but not great. So I think Fire Ice should be the stronger card. Here we have Iona, so still no expensive artifact to combo with Tinker, but I believe that Venser is a great addition to this deck, as we are trying to play a tempo game and also want to have some permission. It seems like a good card to add. Now let's check what do we have to find with Academy Rector. I think there isn't anything. No, we didn't pick any enchantments, so that's really out of the question. Ranger of Eos does get Mother of Runes, but currently we wouldn't play any of these cards. So in fact, I think I'm just going to pick up Overgrown Tomb because there isn't anything I can use. Cloud God Ranger wheeled, so did Electrolyze, which means that we could add Electrolyze to Fire Ice and play maybe Sulfur Falls and a Mountain. Alternatively, we can just go for Ponder, but this depends on the amount of shuffle effects we have. I think with Glaciers, Tolaria West, Sheldock Isle, Polluted Delta, and Stoneforge Mystic, Ponder should be good enough. This is a late Surrender Ifrit. It's a 3/4 that deals damage to you, but it's a 3/4 for 3 mana, and it flies. So might easily play that card. Chandra is also not a bad card, but currently I don't think my mana is really that great, so I don't want to play Fathom Seer. I don't think it's strong enough, so I'm going to pick up Chandra to not have to play against it. I think it's most difficult to play against Planeswalkers, especially if you are drafting a control deck. So here I'm not really scared of any of these cards. Let's just pick the Spirit Monger. And we probably don't want anybody to cast Cruel Ultimatum on us. And we can't use the diamond, so... Empty the Barrens, probably not anybody drafting this Storm deck, although it's possible to draft it. We got an Iona, Shield of Emeria, but it costs 9. Don't think that's making it into our deck. Okay, so this was part 1, the drafting, and now we have to see if we can build some kind of blue-white permission control deck out of the cards we drafted. And let's just start with the core, and the core is really having some cheap counter spells and Stoneforge Mystic with Mortar Pot, Jitte, and Sword of Fire and Ice. And of course, we are definitely going to play Gideon, and we are also going to have to play Mother of Runes. It's a strong card, and it's also going to carry our equipment. Wall of Reverence is too powerful not to play, I believe. Drogskull Weaver makes it in. Apocryphite could be good, but it doesn't have to be. Let's see. This is a 2-drop. This is basically a 4-drop. We have to now see how our curve shapes up. We do have the explosives, the Mindslaver, Fire Eyes, and a lot of non-basic lands as well. Frantic Surge, not something we want. Tinker is probably not making it. We can Tinker for Jitte or Sword of Fire and Ice, but we don't have any artifacts we really want to sacrifice. So we would really need like a Sphinx of the Steel Wind to play Tinker here. Fact or Fiction is right at home in this kind of deck. And we are probably going to add most of the cards that are still here. I do want to look at the options I have for mana, however. So Thawing Glaciers, it basically allows you to exchange it for a basic land, which is slow, but it's also not the worst effect. So if you have the time to use it, I think it's very powerful. And of course that really depends on the matchup you're playing. If you're playing a control matchup, you really like to draw all these lands. If you're playing against mono red, you don't really want to do it. So it doesn't generate any mana. That's like the big concern I have. Now we are going to be playing simple blue-white deck, and we do have Counterspell, Venser, and Gideon. So the mana is going to be quite evenly divided, and that means I probably want to play something like 18 lands with a 9/9 distribution, and I can afford to play that many lands because I have quite a lot of powerful cards and also ways to get them. Or if I draw my lands, I can use my card draw spells to convert tempo into additional cards. So I'm not really worried about that. So now we are not going to play Tinker and probably not going to play Frantic Surge. So we have basically Opportunity, Repeal, Mindslaver, the Explosives, Crucible, Fire and Ice, Disc and Rout, and I think we can almost assuredly add the mass removal spells. I don't like to destroy my equipment, but we need some ways to control the board. We have 18 cards with this setup, and we already put in all of our 9 creatures, which I think is important to carry the equipment. It's good that Mortar Pot comes with a token and that the Apocryphite also comes back, so this should be good. Wall of Reverence, of course, not the best card, but it can still carry a Jitte. It's also good on the defensive. And with Mortar Pot and Gideon, we actually have 11 creatures, if you want. Now, Rout is going to be good because of Gideon, and I'm not so sure about the Disc because it killed so much of our most powerful cards. Now, if we don't play the Disc, we do need some other ways to handle early aggression, and Engineered Explosives might be the right card for the job, simply to get rid of any kind of early troublesome cards with evasion or 1 and 2 drops our opponent plays. So I think Energy Explosive, even in a 2-color deck, if we only play like 1 Sulfur Falls, is usually going to be good enough to make use of. And if we play the Sulfur Force anyway, I think that Fire Ice should also be a good card to add. And then I probably want Repeal over instead of Opportunity. I think that Opportunity is probably a little too clunky for this deck, but that's kind of close. We could play either one. I think that Repeal is simply the better card though. I'm not that control-ish, so it's not even clear if I'm winning the game in certain matchups if I draw some more cards. I'm not going to play Crucible, and I think I will put these in if I play against less aggressive decks. Then I can change my deck accordingly. Now, most of these are going to make it in. Polluted Delta because we want the shuffle effect with Ponder, and we are just going to count it as an island. Sulfur Falls because it's going to be good with explosives and the fire side of Fire Ice. And then we just have to see if, well, we do want Academy Ruins. It gives us a great way to buy back our equipments if they ever go to the graveyard. And then Wasteland isn't that great, but we might just play it because our mana looks quite good. So with 4 blue sources and 1 colorless land, we would need to play something like 7-3 would give us 15 lands, 8-4, let's see. Yeah, so this would be the even distribution, which is kind of bad because all our non-basic lands are basically on the blue side of the spectrum, which means that Polluted Delta has only 4 cards to search, and that makes it kind of a liability. Of course, if we have drawn all 4 islands, it's not that big of a deal, but it still makes a difference if that ever comes up. So question is, do we want Thawing Glaciers? And I don't think we do, simply because of the disadvantage that it doesn't make any mana. And then I'm looking at Wasteland simply as a good card to mess with the opponent's tempo. But this really depends. From this deck list, I feel like we won't always be able to use the tempo that effectively. So when I'm looking at this deck, it's probably better to simply have the colored lands as an alternative. It's also possible that I should just cut the Polluted Delta because it's really only good with Ponder and not with any of the other cards. But it's also going to thin out our deck. So I think I'm going to try to start it and then see if I like it or not. Now, I only have 17 lands currently. So if I do want an 18th land, I can still add the Wasteland, for example, or go with one of the spells. But I think this deck can easily play with 18 lands, and then Wasteland should be a good addition. Yeah, I kind of like that. Our curve isn't too heavy. We have Sheldock Isle, the Reaver, and the 5 drops here, kind of as our late game, but also some powerful stuff to do in the early game. Okay, let's see how it goes.